Welcome.
I'm Cameron Scott, one of the story architects of Star Wars: The High Republic.
This is Dominic Pace, who plays Gekko the Bounty Hunter from The Mandalorian.
Hi, I'm Claudia Gray. I write Star Wars books.
And you're listening.
And you are listening
to Star Wars Comics in Canon. The Force is strong with this one.
Hello there and welcome to Star Wars Comics in Canon, your guide to the wider Star Wars canon through the comic book lens. And to take you on this journey, I'm your host, Mike Burton. And so brings episode 114. So my friends, this week I am delving into the aftermath of Crimson Reign, more specifically what the bounty hunters were up to. So for all unaware, there was a crossover event called War of the Bounty Hunters, then the sequel crossover event to that was Crimson Reign, and the final crossover event in the deemed Qi'ra trilogy, that's Qi'ra from A Star Wars Story, played by Emilia Clarke. The finale of that, the last part in the trilogy, is Hidden Empire. But before Hidden Empire, and after Crimson Reign, there are 4 or 5 issues of comics for the 4 comics involved in the crossover. So that is Bounty Hunters, the 2020 run of Darth Vader, the 2020 run of Star Wars, and the 2020 run of Dr. Aphra. So all of those comics all intersect and cross over in various ways, but there are about 20 or so comics in between Crimson Reign and Hidden Empire, so I wanted to delve into those so no one is missing out. So this week I'm tackling Bounty Hunters number 24 to 28, and then the subsequent weeks I'll try and tackle Star Wars, Darth Vader, and Dr. Aphra, but I'll delve into all of what's coming up right at the very end, so there's not too much fluff here at the start. But if you haven't joined me before, welcome to the show. I hope you enjoy yourself. In short, I go through the plot details of each of the comics in chronological order, and as I go through them, I pick up on certain bits of trivia or interesting information along the way, so you get a good understanding of the plot details. But if you want to pick up the comics yourself, you can still pick up a lot from reading them yourself because of dialogue and action scenes and the amazing artwork and that sort of stuff. I always encourage people to pick up these comics, regardless if you've heard my episode on it before or not, and if you have read them before, it's a perfect refresher. But yeah, along the way, I'll give you information on species and reoccurring characters and those sorts of things. So it's perfect to widen your understanding of the Star Wars canon. So, delving into the comic details, I am tackling issues 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28 of the Bounty Hunters comics. That means I'm tackling the Raid on the Vermillion story arc, as well as the Havoc at the Accretion Disco story arc. These were all written by Ethan Sachs. The artist for all of them is Paolo Villanelli, and the colour artist is Arif Prianto. Issue 24 was released June 15th, 2022. Issue 28 was released November 2nd, 2022, and the trade paperback collection is due to be released January 31st, 2023, and that collection is going to be called Raid on the Vermillion, featuring all of these issues I'm tackling in this episode, as well as issue number 23, which I tackled back in episode 110 of Comics in Canon, which is when I delved into Crimson Reign number 5 and all of the corresponding crossover comics, including Bounty Hunters number 23. So my friends, with that all in mind, let's delve into the first comic of this batch. That is comic number 24, and here is The Crawl. It is a time of bloody warfare in the underworld, sparked by the machinations of Crimson Dawn. Cadeliah, the young heir to the warring crime syndicates, Unbroken Clan and the Mourner's Wail, is being held captive by the shadowy organisation. Ta'Onga and her crew of bounty hunters have captured Vakora, the leader of the Unbroken Clan, in an effort to find Cadeliah's whereabouts and rescue her. Meanwhile, dastardly Dengar has assassinated the leader of the Mourner's Wail on behalf of Crimson Dawn. His new assignment? Infiltrate Ta'Onga's crew. Elsewhere in the galaxy, Valance has been pressed into the service of Darth Vader against his will, but being part of the Empire has proven more seductive than he ever could have imagined. So delving right in, you've got Dengar, Ta'Onga and Losha all discussing infiltrating the Vermillion, which is the Crimson Dawn ship, because Dengar has been there before. He antagonises all members of the crew, especially Tasu Leech, and then goes to interrogate Vakora. He goes to where Vakora is, turns off the cameras while Vakora is just like threatening him constantly, saying things like she's going to rip out his entrails and strangle him with them, that sort of thing. And then he gives her a knife and mentions to await the dawn, obviously confirming they are both working for Crimson Dawn. Meanwhile, Valance is on a planet called Gorel. Now, Gorel is in the Lothal sector, so any of my Rebels fans will recognise the planet Lothal. So obviously it's been in several episodes of Star Wars Rebels, as there is a Rebel base that was made there. It's also in Forces of Destiny, and is mentioned in the Aftermath book Life Debt, as well as Claudia Gray's book Master and Apprentice. So it's in the canon, it's been there for quite a bit, but Rebels was really the place that it really came into the forefront. Now, Valance is on there because the Imperials are opening a new munitions factory, and Crimson Reign are planning an assassination of an Imperial general. So, Valance, as well as the heroes, the Revengers crew, the Human, the Weequay, and the Trandoshan, are all there to try and stop the assassination. The Trandoshan, who's called Tanka, thinks that someone is trying to assassinate, goes to take them down, but is the wrong person, which then Valance is like, oh no, this is going to spark the assassination going ahead, and he is right, it did spook the assassin. So a scout walker starts up and starts to walk towards the general who is giving a speech. Now, a Scout Walker, you all know what that is an ATST, an all-terrain scout transport. You saw it first in Empire Strikes Back on Hoth, but then you saw them much more up close and in detail in Return of the Jedi. They're also nicknamed Chicken Walkers. So with Valance seeing the ATST, he grabs a speeder bike and heads towards it. The Revengers crew are trying to shoot at it, but they're failing to do any real damage to it. Valance flings a speeder into the leg of the ATST, it then topples, and in doing so pushes the General's daughter off the edge of this massive plinth he's on. And they are probably, from looking at the images, like hundreds and hundreds of stories high, so it is truly a free fall this kid is falling from. So Valance then dives off the building, manages to grab her, and he's holding her tight to his chest and lands on the ground, and she is basically completely unscathed. He's a bit scratched up and his synth skin starts to hang off a little bit, but she is fine. He then gets a comm asking what on earth he's doing. He notes that he saves the daughter, and the Imperials don't care about the daughter that they saved. He is meant to be saving the general. However, he has failed at that, because the assassins did manage to kill the Imperial general, seemingly because the ATST and all that other stuff was a big distraction. So then back to the Bounty Hunters crew. They're on Nal Hutta, and Dengar gets them near to the Crimson Dawn base, Vermillion, because the ship is currently docked there. He then leaves the ship and then communicates to his partner or love interest or whatever, girlfriend, Manaru. In Legends, she's a major part, but in the canon, she's only really been showing her face a little bit recently. But basically, Dengar has been paid by the Bounty Hunters crew to get them into Crimson Dawn, and paid by Crimson Dawn to try and exterminate the Bounty Hunters crew, so he's getting double payments, and he is hoping that the two of them will kill each other. The rest of the Bounty Hunters crew then get prepped and leave Losha there to watch over Vakura on the ship the Edgehawk. The Bounty Hunter crew then get some disguises, and these are disguises of the Vincorba religious cult, which you see in Darth Vader number 18. If you want to hear more about that, go to episode 102 of Star Wars Comics in Canon, which is when I tackled the full volume of Crimson Reign 1. And in fact, in that little panel, there's actually an editor's note to mention that, which is quite rare for Star Wars comics to have editor's notes. You know, when I read other Marvel comics like Spider-Man or things like that, or any of the big like Carnage crossover events, whenever there's a line of dialogue, there's always a little asterisk saying, check out, you know, issue this or issue that from the editor. Star Wars comics don't really do that much, which is great for my show. It's a further reason to listen, but I just thought that was interesting. So Dengar then leaves the Bounty Hunters crew at the entrance to the Vermillion, and when they kind of go in and things, after being a bit disgruntled, and he's like, look, you paid me to get you here and get you on, I'm here, I'm going. So he leaves, and as soon as he leaves, he then goes into like a side room to some security, knocks out one of the Crimson Dawn guards, and then reports on the comms that the Bounty Hunter crew are there, and they are wearing disguises. A shootout then occurs between the Bounty Hunters crew and also some Crimson Dawn guards, and the Bounty Hunter team manage to work together. They get a little bit of a rapport, and they do seemingly get out unscathed. Tasu does also mention Dianoga spores, and just to clarify, Dianoga is the creature that grabbed Luke's leg in the garbage disposal part on the Death Star in A New Hope, and you can actually hear a certain point of view story from Certain Point of View, the original one, about the Dianoga and how they got captured and that they're like hundreds and hundreds of years old and they're force sensitive and all kinds of other weird stuff. But yes, Dianoga, it's basically the eye thing on a tentacle that grabbed Luke in A New Hope. And then this comic ends with the Knights of Ren showing up as the Bounty Hunter crew get through the shootout and go through another door, and they are there to confront them. And that is where this comic ends. Now, if you want more information on the Knights of Ren, make sure you check out episodes 108 and 109 of Star Wars Comics in Canon, because I delved into their history and things. I redid my Rise of Kylo Ren episode, which I did on the first full episode of Comics in Canon, and since then I've changed the format quite a lot, and there's been a lot more developments of Kylo Ren and also the Knights of Ren in the canon, so I did a redo of that in episode 109, and yeah, episode 108 was Crimson Reign number 4, and that's when the Knights of Ren try and break into Darth Vader's castle on Mustafar. So two very, very good batches of comics, and in my opinion, two very good episodes of Comics in Canon. So please check those out if you want more information of the Knights of Ren, because I'm not going to be repeating myself here. So let's move on to the second issue of this collection, number 25. So the Knights of Ren approach the bounty hunter's crew, and Tasu Leech feels quite threatened, especially because he keeps mentioning that the main guy, Ren, doesn't look that muscular and doesn't look that dangerous, which I just say Tasu Leech's dialogue in all of these bounty hunter comics are absolutely hilarious. I love it. And if you want to find out more information on Tasu Leech, watch The Force Awakens. He does pop up there. It's not quite obvious who it is, but Han Solo does call him by name. But also, if you want more information, go back to the prior episode of Bounty Hunters, because I think I introduced him in either the first or second volume of that, and give a bit of backstory about him. But also, when the Knights of Ren reveal themselves, Bosk is scared of them because he says they are legends. So I'm very intrigued to see how far back the Knights of Ren go. I suspect we're going to see them in the High Republic, and I suspect we're going to see them probably even before then. But it'd be really interesting to see kind of some more roots of them. Oh, if they popped up in the Acolyte, that would be insane. I don't think they will. That's the TV show coming out in, I think, late 23 or 2024. It's like a dark side thriller. I'm very excited to hear about that, because that's like my number one anticipated show for the upcoming slew of Star Wars Disney shows. But yeah, little side tangent. I just want to see the Knights of Ren in more stuff. So the Knights of Ren and the Bounty Hunters crew have this big fight. It's what the majority of this issue is. I really enjoy it, and I hugely recommend people pick this up and check out, because the artwork is absolutely incredible. Obviously, shout out to Paolo Villanelli, who I had the privilege of speaking to on Genuine Chit-Chat. I think it was either earlier in the year or it was last year. But if you type in any podcast app, Paolo Villanelli, Genuine Chit-Chat, you'll hear my hour-long conversation with him. So the Knights of Ren shoot to disarm, and then Forlom takes some shots for Zuckuss, getting damaged in the process, and then Taonga tries to disarm them as well. So then the group of Knights of Ren decide to change up from blasters to some up-close melee combat. They pull out staves and swords and all kinds of stuff. Tasu Leech then takes off his shirt to confront Ren with some items that look a little bit like vibroblades, but slightly later on in the comic it's confirmed that they are Beskar laced blades that Tasu got from an opponent in the fighting pits. So obviously Beskar can actually counter a lightsaber, and Ren, the leader of the Knights of Ren, has a lightsaber that's also called Ren. So I'm not going to delve into that here. If you want more information about Ren and his lightsaber Ren and the Knights of Ren, go check out episode 109 of Comics in Canon. So while this is all happening, on the Edgehawk, Losha hears blaster fire on the comms, and then she notices Vakura's reflection in the helmet, because that knife that Dengar gave Vakura, she used to cut out of her binds, and then goes for Losha. Losha manages to just about dodge a fatal blow, but is stabbed in the shoulder and then runs away, and Vakura says she's going to pursue her through the ship and has disabled the only exit. While that's all going on, Valance is on an Imperial base called Ryleel on Qi'ra. Now, Qi'ra is actually first in the Clone Wars in Season 5, Episode 13. The episode's called Point of No Return. I believe it's the finale of the droid arc where R2, 3PO, and Colonel Meba Gasco are all stranded and stuff. It's quite an interesting episode. Gasco is this 33 centimeter tall, which is a foot or so, Zilkin, a very small species. And it's an interesting episode. I think it's George Lucas's favorite arc of the Clone Wars. It's a good one. I don't think it's amazing. I think it's fun, but yeah, that's where you'd have heard it. And then Qi'ra is also in the book Tarkin. It's also in Han Solo Imperial Cadet, which was the canon debut of Beilert Valance. And it's also in Target Vader, which was the soft prequel to the Bounty Hunters runs of comics. So lots of little connections. So Valance is getting repaired on Qi'ra. He's mad at the droid because the medical droid calls him lieutenant, and he's I'm not part of the Empire, rah rah rah, that sort of grumpiness that we all love about Valance, or at least I do. I think he's amazing. And so Lieutenant Hayden comes in and then tells him to come with her. And she shows him that he saved 17 different people from this reactor that was going to blow on that planet I think we just saw him in. And he saved the life of 17 Imperial engineers. And so she takes him around to meet all of them, and he starts talking to them, and all of these people are thanking him and saying, I never thought I was going to see my family again. You saved my life. And he's I'm not a hero. I was just doing what I needed to do. And he's really taken aback by all these people just praising him and saying all these nice things about him. And while that's going on, Hayden is is told by an Imperial officer that they bombed the base where Valance's loved ones are. That's where Qi'ra is, and that's where they believed Cadeliah to be and things. That's where Valance left it in the earlier arcs of Bounty Hunters. And Valance notes that the only reason he's even with the Empire is because they're holding Qi'ra and the rest of his friends hostage on that planet. So obviously now Hayden, knowing that the Imperials bombed it from space and just there were no survivors apparently, then if Valance found that out, he would probably rebel against the Empire, and they don't want that to happen to him. So she tells the officer to not tell a single soul, because Vader will be very upset to find out that he lost one of his best enforcers. So back to the Bounty Hunter crew fighting the Knights of Ren. So the Bounty Hunter crew are losing. They are just about surviving, but they are all getting injured. Tonga gets knocked down. Zuckuss gets his respirator, sliced a little bit, one of the tubes for his respirator. And then Tassu's weapon breaks because it's not Beskar handle, so Ren manages to cut it there. Forlon, while this is all going on, manages to open a side door and the Bounty Hunters crew just about escape. They have to literally drag Tassu Leech away. He's saying he was winning. He clearly was not winning, but Tassu has a bit of an ego problem and a problem with masculinity and things. So, he did not want to leave. On the Edgehawk, Vakura is still pursuing Losha, and Losha leads Vakura into a room with her Nexu and then locks the doors. Now, this Nexu is absolutely gigantic in Bounty Hunters, but the Nexus we've seen is in Attack of the Clones, is the live-action one, in the Geonosian fighting pit where Anakin, Obi-Wan and Padme are. The Nexu scratches Padme's back. It's that kind of space hyena dog wolf thing. That's what a Nexu is. And then the final panels show that the Bounty Hunters crew managed to put down a blast door between them and the Knights of Ren and then start to retreat. Tonga wants to push on and find Cadeliah, and the rest of the crew decide to go back and meet them at the ship. And then one of the lines of dialogue that I thought was very funny that Tassu Leech says is, "I can't believe that less muscular man almost beat me." So yeah, Ethan Sachs, he writes a really good dialogue for these Bounty Hunters comics. But with that in mind, let's move on to the middle comic of this collection, which is issue 26. So issue 26 shows Taonga is cutting through lots of Crimson Dawn guards, and she's trying to find Cadeliah, while Vakura is still pursuing Losha on the Edgehawk ship, and Vakura gets attacked by Losha's Nexu. She really doesn't want to hurt it. She notes that she loves animals, but it's people that she can't stand. But Vakura uses her helmet to target the Nexu's weak point, which is an artery going up their neck. So I think it's similar to humans in that regard. You get stabbed at the right place in the neck, and it is a fatal blow. Vakura does that and slices the Nexu's neck, and immediately is apologetic to Losha, saying she didn't want to hurt the Nexu, and that her dad made her kill a Tuka cat and things like that, and she loves animals. Losha is having none of it. She is absolutely furious. She's holding the dying body of her Nexu. She's crying, and she's screaming at Vakura, telling her to leave the ship, and if she ever dares come near her again, Losha is going to absolutely destroy her. And Vakura's completely taken aback by this and is grieving somewhat because she really didn't want to kill the Nexu, but it's a big beast and it would have 100% killed Vakura if she hadn't. And so Vakura leaves the ship while Losha's just left there cradling the corpse of her Nexu, who's called Furball. While that's going on, we go back to Valance and Hayden. So Hayden's reviewing the reports of the bombing base of Valance's loved ones, and then turns it off once Valance comes in. It shows that Hayden has been drinking, and Valance is like, are you okay? Why have you been drinking? And she says, for this, and then just leans in and tries to kiss Valance. Valance pulls back and notes that he knows that Hayden's seen all his memories and knows why he can't, because he still loves Qi'ra. Hayden then almost tells Valance that Qi'ra's gone, but then kind of pulls back a bit on that, and it's clear that Hayden is very hurt by Valance pulling back and not kissing her, and then she just tells Valance to leave. Then back on the Vermillion, Taonga's just wiped this whole room of Crimson Dawn guards, and then Margot, the Imrusian, comes out and talks to Taonga. Says, come with me and I'll take you to Cadeliah, and Taonga's like, why should I trust you? And she's like, well, just come with me and you'll get what you want, but also we don't want you killing any more of our guards. It then shows that Dengar is hiding in I think it's a dockyard-ish place. It's where the Edgehawk is, and he's watching hidden. He sees Vakura leave the Edgehawk, and then sees some of the Bounty Hunter crew return, but a couple of them are missing. And so he tries to communicate to Manaru, saying that the plan seems to be working and whatnot, and then someone is behind him. It is Tassu Leech. Tassu lands a blow right onto Dengar. Dengar tries to fight back, but gets just the floor wiped with him. Tassu obviously is grown up in the fighting pits and is a very fierce hand-to-hand combat fighter, and he just beats up Dengar, knocks him to the floor, kicks him in the face, all kinds of stuff. He speaks in Jablogian while he's doing that, which is obviously Tassu's native tongue, and he wants Dengar to always be looking over his shoulder for the fear that Tassu is going to come and finish the job, and Tassu just leaves him there kind of bleeding on the floor. Then it shows what Taonga's up to, and she actually manages to speak with Cadeliah, but Cadeliah doesn't want to leave. Cadeliah claims that Taonga can't even protect her, can't even protect herself or the bounty hunter crew. Valance just abandoned her and left her there, and Akano Lash was killed. So Cadeliah just doesn't really want to leave because she believes the safest place for her is here at Crimson Dawn. Taonga is just really taken aback by this and obviously very upset that she's done all this stuff to try and get to Cadeliah, finally gets to Cadeliah, and then Cadeliah doesn't want to come. So Qi'ra then says that she respects Taonga and the bounty hunter crew for all they tried, and so because of their fierceness, Qi'ra wants to offer them to do a job. Taonga is really distressed by this and just doesn't really know what to do, decides that she'll make a decision when she speaks to her crew and goes back to them. But this whole conversation gets overheard by Vakura as well. Vakura hearing that Cadeliah will lead Mourner's Wail and the Unbroken Clan Syndicate, which is what Vakura believes that Qi'ra promised her, and so Vakura feels betrayed and slinks off. No one seemed to see Vakura being there. And then the final panels show that Taonga is then speaking with Losha, who is obviously laying over the corpse of her Nexu and is crying, and the rest of the bounty hunter crew are there, and Losha asks, so it was all for nothing. And then the final panel is just Taonga holding this comlink that Qi'ra gave her and trying to work out what to do. So that ends the raid on the Vermillion arc, so we move on to the Havoc at the Accretion Disco arc. There's only 2 issues, and it starts with issue 27. So issue 27 starts with Taonga awaking from a nightmare that seemed to be about Boba Fett, likely from some of the earlier issues we saw. She walks in her ship and Losha's up and is exercising, and Taonga asks if anything is okay, and Losha says when she gets her hands around Vakura's throat, it will be. Taonga thinks that it's probably good to leave Losha alone while she, works these things out, and then continues walking through the ship. Bosk is asleep, but Zuckuss and Tassu are up, and Tassu's recounting tales of his fighting pit days. After a little while, Tassu then asks about accepting that offer from Crimson Dawn, but Taonga is still mad at Crimson Dawn for, hiring Dengar to assassinate them and that sort of stuff, so she really doesn't want to take it. So instead, they're heading to do another job, to protect a pike gangster. So a pike is, they're kind of like fish people in a way, to be derogatory, but not like a Quarren and not like a Mon Calamari, slightly different. And we actually saw them live action in Solo, a Star Wars story, when they go to the Mines of Kessel, but all of those pikes are wearing their trademark masks, which is also how we see them in the Clone Wars. However, we do see one unmasked in the Book of Boba Fett. So if you've seen Book of Boba Fett, you know what I'm referring to. But yeah, they are crime syndicates, and they first appeared in the Clone Wars. It seemed to be Series 3, Episode 14, the episode called Eminence. And they are one of the major crime syndicates, along with Black Sun, and along with the Hutts. Not quite as big as the Hutts, because the Hutts are like the biggest. But yeah, they're amidst those big crime syndicates. So this pike is celebrating at the Accretion Disco, which is a station that is orbiting a black hole, and it's almost as close as you can get to the black hole's event horizon without going there. Now, an event horizon, just in brief, is basically the point of no return in a black hole. If you can, see the event horizon, or if you're in the event horizon, you can never escape a black hole. There's a whole film about it, go watch that. But all of the bounty hunter crew have very bad feelings about what they're about to enter into, especially when you see the incredible artwork of what it looks like for a space station to be just on the edge of an event horizon on a black hole. So Tassu really doesn't like the pikes anyway, and obviously wants to take Crimson Dawn's offer, but he goes along with them. The ship docks onto this station. The pikes say that they are late, and then also one of them calls Tassu fighting pit trash, which obviously does not go well with Tassu. Meanwhile, Valance is bought a drink by a female Imperial officer at one of the cafeterias or bars that the Empire seem to have, and she gives a drink to a droid, and the droid goes over to Valance and says, "Give this to the cute one." Then a male officer comes over and talks to Valance, trying to kind of talk about how they're both heroes of the Empire and what he did on Hoth, and then what Valance has been doing as well, and that sort of stuff. Valance is not really interested by all this, and then just leaves after this guy mentions about taking action. Valance goes and talks to Hayden, and then they kiss. Then at the Accretion Disco, the crew meet this gentleman named Omel, who is this Pike Syndicate gangster guy, and he also insults Tassu. You can see where this is going. A lot of them insulting Tassu. And it's confirmed that some Kanji assassins are the ones who are after Omel, and they then attack shortly after. The bounty hunter's crew manage to defend. Tassu and Taonga try and move Omel to like a back room, and Taonga gets knocked down in doing this. She is saved by 4LOM or 4LOM. I keep calling him 4LOM, but his name is 4LOM, but I prefer 4LOM. And Losha is also fighting one of the Kanji assassins who calls her weak, and she just absolutely flips out, smashes him in the head with her gun. He starts to fall down, and she just hits him over and over and over again, and Taonga has to pull her away, saying that he's already dead. So Losha then is like crying and is breaking down down again, obviously still grieving on the death of the Nexu, which is only hours before, and then Tonga yells at Tasu to get Omel to the safe room in the back. After a little bit more chaos and things, eventually Tasu does get Omel to the safe room, but some Kanja assassins are there. Now they talk to Tasu and note that their revenge is because the Pikes bombed a Kanji fighting school while the students were sleeping there. The leader then questions how much the friends of Tasu, the bounty hunter crew, actually understand him and really respect him, and then the Kanja assassins leave. Omel then says that, Tasu, you're not quite as useless as I thought. And then the crew of bounty hunters shortly arrive afterwards to find Omel dead on the floor, and his blood is literally on Tasu's hands. And Tasu just mentions that at least we got a down payment on this job, and that's where issue 27 ends. So we move on to the finale of this batch, which is issue number 28. So the final issue starts with the crew all being very angry at Tasu. He doesn't really give a good reason why he killed Omel, and obviously they've just spent all that time getting there, and he just suddenly starts to be political. And then Tasu says, well, why don't we just lie to them? They won't know. Then the next panel is showing that the Pikes were watching them on CCTV, and so the alarm then sounds. The leader of the Kanji assassins is walking away just before the alarm sets off, and one of his followers questions if it was right to leave Tasu there. And the Kanja leader mentions that Tasu definitely has some potential, and then the alarm goes off, and the Kanja leader's like, see? Forlom, Zuckus, and Bosk are standing in the foyer of this sort of station, questioning, I wonder if they actually managed to save this Omel guy. Then the alarm sounds, and they're like, oh, clearly not, and then they start to get shot at, so they take cover. While this goes on, Valance is with the three Revengers and Lieutenant Hayden once again. They're going to meet Darth Vader. Vader makes some sort of comment questioning why they're there slightly earlier than Vader wanted, and Valance just yells at Vader saying, we got here as soon as you asked us to, Hayden was just trying to make you happy. Vader just completely ignores that, and the Revengers then go on one knee and pledge themselves to Darth Vader, because Vader then, he uses the Force, and it looks like he's going to Force choke Valance, but he just sorts out his uniform and mentions that he needs to look a certain way if he's going to serve Vader. And he also tells Valance to be less self-destructive, and then gives him a mission. I think Valance got away more with Vader than probably anyone in the entire galaxy ever, apart from maybe Obi-Wan. It's just absolutely mental what Valance can seem to get away with. But this mission that Vader gives them is that Crimson Dawn are planning an attack on some medical supplies that the Imperials are going to take to a planet of theirs, and the Imperials want them to eliminate the threat. Meanwhile, the bounty hunter crew is getting overwhelmed by all these Pikes, and 4LOM runs off with a plan. Zuckus performs quite a cool little ricochet maneuver that I'll let you find that out if you read the comic, which obviously I always encourage, and Losha is again letting out lots of her aggression, smashing thugs in the face with her gun, and just wailing on corpses. Tonga once again has to step in and pull Losha away, once again confirming the person she's killing is already dead, and Losha just breaks down once again. It shows that 4LOM smashes a droid into the station's thrusters, which then cause the thrusters to turn off. While this is all going on, it shows what Vakora is up to, and she is taken in by her own clan, seemingly as somewhat of a prisoner, and someone is sat on her throne, and mentions Cadeliah. Without a second thought, Vakora kills him and then tells the rest of her clan to leave her. She has some things she needs to kind of figure out. And then she thinks to herself and thinks of Losha and obviously the Nexu furball that she killed. Now back to the Accretion Disco station. So it starts to fall into the black hole, and Bosk tells everyone to run like a Fathier. Now a Fathier, or Fathier, F-A-T-H-I-E-R, they are like the furry horse-ish like things that we saw in The Last Jedi, which is what Rose and Finn let escape, and then they ride them out of Canto Bight. So that's what a Fathier is. They manage to get near the Edgehawk ship, and Tonga decides to save the staff of the station who aren't the Pikes, who are people who, haven't really done anything wrong. They take off and just about manage to escape on the Edgehawk, and then they jump to hyperspace. It's confirmed by 4LOM that the station didn't send out any comms, so there is absolutely no record of the bounty hunter crew being there or doing anything to the station. Losha then says to Tonga that we need to contact Crimson Dawn to get this job because we've just got no other options and we are desperate. So, Crimson Dawn, they respond to the comm message and Margot speaks to them, and Margot confirms that Crimson Dawn want to cause trouble for the Empire, and this job for them is quite simple. They need to take some supplies which would upset the balance, and it zooms out showing that the final panel of this comic is that the mission that they are going on is the same mission that Valance is on, but on the other side. So the bounty hunter crew must try and destroy some supplies, and Valance is going to try and stop them, and that is where Bounty Hunters number 28 and the arc Raid on the Vermillion / Havoc at the Accretion Disco ends. So my friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode, but I'm sure you're asking, what have we got coming out next? Because I assured you this episode will be out last week, and I did a cop-out and released Tales of the Jedi. I say a cop-out, I did really want to do Tales of the Jedi, and Dave and I had a really good conversation on that, so I stand by my decision. But I will assure yourselves that for the next few weeks, it is aiming to be more of the kind of thing I did this week. So obviously I've done the Bounty Hunters batch of comics, then next up is the Star Wars batch of comics, which should be Star Wars 25, 26, 27, 28 and 29. Star Wars 25 is kind of its own thing. It's like 4 short stories, whereas 26 to 29 is like the next arc between Crimson Reign and Hidden Empire. So next week I may just do the 4, 26 to 29, or I may do 25, who knows. I know that Star Wars Revelations is coming out as well, which is like a one-off special about the future of Star Wars. I think that's coming out in the next couple of weeks. And so I imagine I may end up doing a special, which is Star Wars 25 and Star Wars Revelations, but it's kind of going to depend what's in Revelations, but we'll see. I'll figure all of that out once I read it, but next week you may or may not get Star Wars 25. Then the subsequent weeks, I'm aiming to do Dr. Aphra, 22 to 26, and Darth Vader, 24 to 29. Those two, 29 of Vader and 26 of Aphra, are due to be released, or rather, the Vader and Aphra comics, I'm expecting them to be delivered to me in the next week or two. So once I've got them, I'll have the full package. And then in the new year, I will be able to start with Hidden Empire #1. Now, I will mention here that from now to Christmas, there's only, I think, 3 weeks or so. So I think I'll be able to do Star Wars 25 to 29, and then either Vader or Aphra, depending, and then it will be my break for Christmas. Obviously Christmas is on a Sunday this year, and then so is New Year's Eve, so I won't be doing normal episodes on those two. I'll probably release something on here from my Patreon, probably my A New Dawn review I'll put up, and then I'm planning on doing a review for Padawan as well, so maybe I'll release that too, but you'll get something on this feed, even if it's just a little Patreon thing, so fear not, my friends. But then that means that for 2023 I will be embarking on the Hidden Empire crossover events. I will be doing those probably in the same fashion that I've been doing Crimson Reign and War of the Bounty Hunters, which is each episode doing the main Hidden Empire comic and then the 4 subsequent crossover comics that line in with that. Obviously on top of that, we've got the High Republic Phase 2 kicking off, so I will be doing a book review on Path of Deceit when I finish that, and then following that is going to be Convergence and then also Quest for the Hidden City. So it was just going to take me time to read those. Obviously I'm trying to read these comics in amidst trying to read books as well. So I've started Path of Deceit. It's good so far, but I've only got like a chapter and a half in. So it's going to be a little while yet. I imagine that review will be in January. I'm hoping to do a lot of reading over Christmas. So hopefully I can read that, and I can also read Convergence, or at least part of it, and start getting these book reviews out for the High Republic so I can delve into Phase 2. But that is generally what I've got planned. I know I keep promising the Clone Wars Battle Tales IDW publishing comic, but it's quite an offshoot comic. There's not a lot of people who are really clamoring for that, and also it's quite a good one to have in reserve when there's not loads of comics coming out that I need to delve into, so I will be doing that at some point. I'm also expecting a delivery of the Tales from the Rancor's Pit. It's basically the next anthology horror collection from Cavan Scott, but it's not Ghosts or Tales from Vader's Castle, it's its own thing, Tales from the Rancor Pit. So I'm expecting that, and there's also the Dark Horse Hyperspace Stories comics, which I've been getting. They're all age stories. Each story is its own one shot, so they're just kind of similar to the Star Wars Adventures comics and things like that, which I haven't really delved into that much unless they connect with the High Republic or something else, but that is generally what they are. So a couple of Dark Horse things coming up in the coming months, High Republic book reviews, and then also continuing with the in-between issues between Crimson Reign and Hidden Empire, and then delving into Hidden Empire. Obviously for early 2023, we've also got part 2 of the Han Solo and Chewbacca comics. We've also got the Yoda miniseries that's starting, and then the variety of High Republic comics once they have finished their first full arcs. But my friends, that's what you can expect. What else am I up to and stuff? Well, follow me at Genuine Chit-Chat on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. Make sure you tune into all of the Andor weekly discussion shows. Obviously, Andor has finished, but you can hear myself and many of my friends and co-hosts and fellow podcasters' thoughts on Andor, and you can check out video versions of that at Genuine Chit-Chat's YouTube channel. That's just youtube.com/Genuine Chit-Chat. Over there, there's all my Star Wars comics and canon episodes. They're all in relevant playlists, and there's also plenty of video conversations of various episodes of Genuine Chit-Chat on there as well, and of course the weekly discussion shows on all of these Star Wars episodes that I've been doing for Comics in Motion. I think that's generally everything I've been up to. Just please follow me on social media, share these episodes with your friends and family and everyone you've ever met in your entire life who's seen a Star Wars movie, and we can spread that love. And also, obviously, reviews are always good. They really help things out, either on Good Pods or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever, really. Just share my stuff, share Comics in Motion, share the YouTube channel, share social media, just share everything I do. And if you want to consider supporting this show even more, please consider going to patreon.com/genuine chit-chat. For as little as £1 a month, you get access to hours and hours of additional content every single month. There's the whole back catalogue of it, so if you sign up right now for £1 a month, you'll get I can't remember how many hours it is, but it's 130 episodes of Afterthoughts, and they all average at 15 minutes. So lots and lots of hours of content. Plus, I do Star Wars Legends book reviews specifically over there that I don't release anywhere else. That's the Darth Bane trilogy. That's the Darth Plagueis book. That's the Shatterpoint book. I've also just listened to Rogue Squadron as well, which is the first book in the X-Wing series. So I'm delving into a lot of books from the Essentials Legends collection. I've just started on Revan as well. So I give my reviews on those, and I also give some plot information, so if you haven't picked up these legend stories, you still get a good idea of what they're all about and the plot details within, sort of like these episodes of Comics in Canon are like as well. So if you want to expand your Legends knowledge, get some bonus content for canon stuff, and also support the show and get loads of bonus stuff that's nothing to do with Star Wars, please consider checking out patreon.com/genuine chit-chat for only £1 a month. But that is enough from me, my friends. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. Please support the show. Check out all the other amazing shows on Comics in Motion, or if you're listening on YouTube, check out the variety of other episodes of Comics in Canon and other non-Star Warsy stuff I have been up to. I appreciate you all. Hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week with the batch of Star Wars comics between Crimson Reign and Hidden Empire. So, my friends, until then, may the Force be with you. The intro for Star Wars Comics in Canon is arranged by myself, Mike Burton, and the backing music was made by Eric Matias of soundimage.org.
You have just experienced host, creator, everything elser of Genuine Chit-Chat, and also the host and creator of Star Wars Comics in Canon, found on the Comics in Motion podcast, Mike Burton.